Happy Saturday. It is another week around the sun, which means it is time once again to let it rip. We have another good one in store for you all this week. But before we get there, a couple of things here at the top. Wherever you may be tuning in from this morning, we want to hear from you. So there is a gimmick wherever it is that you are tuning in from called the comment section. Go ahead, navigate your way there and drop us a comment. Let us know where you're tuning in from, what questions that you may have along the way, and all that jazz. And even if you are catching this on the replay or delayed, all that jazz, you can go ahead and throw a comment in, and we will double back or hit it after the fact. So with that out of the way, I turn it over to the host with the most. Good morning, Pastor TC.
What's up? What's up? How you doing, man? Good to be back. Had a good trip with the men. Had a men's retreat last week, and I am feeling great. We do have a powerful show today that I think me and Joe are very passionate about. Where we're going to be talking about the impact of fear-based theology.
Yeah.
Joe sent this to me earlier this week because we're trying to figure out what to talk about, and I'm like, yeah, that's the one. So it's going to be a very personal type of stream. Of course, with the shenanigans of Let It Rip as well that you'll see in there like we usually have. But um, this conversation really works if you guys interact as well, because I think you guys are like, when we explain what this is, you're gonna be like, oh wow, okay. I think I have been impacted by that for some form in some type of way. But yeah, good to be back. Like I said, nonetheless. So let's go ahead and do this, Joe. Um, Explain what you think, or actually explain what fear impact based theology actually is, because yeah, this is probably one of my favorites because we're kind of gonna get to some maybe sub minor theologies that are kind of under this that
Yeah.
I personally have coined from Joe himself. So he'll know what it is when I say it. So
Yeah.
go ahead, man, and then we'll just go from there.
So fear-based theology at a base level is any theological stance that is born out of a place of inherent fear. And the thing about fear-based theology and why it's so prevalent to talk about and so applicable to such a wide variety of types of theology or subject matter or situation or circumstance is, man, when you're talking about something like fear and fear being a driving force, you're talking about an emotion and mindset and stance and position, a wholesale orientation of the whole and complete person that is going to involve that unique whole and complete person, thus giving the fear a unique flavor, which means the theology based around the fear, again, has a unique flavor to it. So I will double down on something that T said. If you are looking at this and you say, oh, no, says me, this doesn't apply to me, I'm not afraid of anything. Um, Ashbed, Ashbed, and take a minute. Understand that fear is an inherently human emotion,
Hmm.
and be willing to authentically step towards this topic, because while it might not be any of like the major temples that you would automatically think of that involves your particular brand of fear-based theology, most of us in some way, shape, or form, I've yet to meet the human who in some way, shape, or form doesn't struggle with this. So for me, a big flavor of fear-based theology, when I first had my come to Jesus moment, I had a lot of conservative voices
Mm,
around me, and it was all very presented. Hyper conservatism at the time was all usually presented almost in like a, hey, why don't you get this, dummy, sort of approach,
mm,
like, oh, this is just common sense, like this is just the way to be. And so some of that was were parts that I personally had to wrestle with. When I started moving away from that was where my control issues really started to become more and more evident. The more time that I spend with God, my control issues became more and more evident. And that is where some of this idea of like falling into going a bridge too far, you know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah.
for me, I think I've hit the point of it's easy for me to take the paradigm of God being angry or not being with us or for us or whatever, or doubt or whatever, that taking those concepts and moving them from one topic to another, because it's not so much dependent on the topic as it is dependent on, because of my control issues, I then turn around and can misappropriate adjectives towards God, if that makes sense.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Feel what you're definitely putting down. I This is interesting because as I was thinking about it, first off, the word fear in itself has a very, how can I put it? It's very easy for us as Christians to just dismiss it because we're not supposed to have it, right?
Yeah.
And so in theology itself, you're not supposed to have fear. God's not
Mhm.
giving you a spirit of fear, blah, 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 right? All the scriptures. And those scriptures are powerful. So it's not like I'm, poking at them. But
Right.
there's this illusion that you're talking about that, yeah, we're not supposed to walk in fear. So therefore fear is not a thing. I often think about my experience and my testimony when it comes to anxiety. Because I didn't realize how much fear ruled my life. Um, just as a regular human being doing life, but also in my relationship with God. Because
Right.
again, both of my realities were this, and if anyone's ever heard my testimony, don't cringe too hard, but it's my story.
Mhm.
So being an African American man, especially a millennial African American man, Jari knows what I'm putting down with this.
Yeah.
Because I even think, truthfully, if I could probably take color out of this and be like, I just think these are how men thought, period. The reason why I do bring my race into this is because, um, okay, let's put it like this. America in the 90s to, I would say, early 2000s, things like anxiety and mental health were supremely frowned upon still.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, those things like having anxiety, depression, um and you haven't even go get some help for it. People call things like shrink. Oh, you gotta go see a shrink.
Mhm.
The things that are unfathomable today that you do not say, you're like, oh, that's crazy work. Why are we talking like that? Like things you would almost get counseled on was very popular language um in the 90s into early 2000. Let's go ahead, sprinkle now. Let's sprinkle some race in there. So being the African American man, we already having the problems. We don't got time to be anxious, and you don't tell your problems to outside sources. That's how I was raised in my household. Your problems are your problems, and if you do have a problem, you share with your household. My problem is what my household doesn't understand what I'm going through,
Right.
or maybe they do, but they've been taught to talk about it, or they tell you to stuff it down. And so, in my 20s, I had a horrible head with anxiety. It was like early 20s. I was like, was working out, and I think just for that whole month, I think the country was in a weird place. I was watching news a lot, which was crazy because high school never really cared about the news. It was just like, it is what it is. Whatever happens, happens. You know, you heard your major events through people probably.
Yep.
Big things you might catch, but for the most part, you know, I'm just living life. But I did something crazy, and I started watching the news in my 20s, and the stuff you just hear on the news. And I'm not trying to bash the news. If you watch the news, that's you. That's cool. But for me, it was just a consensus of overwhelming information that I feel
Mhm.
like I had no control over.
Yeah.
You filter in with my own life, health issues at the time. 'Cause I think at this time I was like over 200 pounds. I was way overweight. So I'm thinking about, man, am I gonna croak? Am I eating right? I feel horrible. All these mental pressures. Well, end up having my first panic attack, and I didn't know what happened. I was like, what is this, right? You know,
Yep.
then you have a heart attack. I'm like, okay, it's not a heart attack. You go in, and of course, the doctor's going to tell you there's nothing physically wrong. They do tests and like, well, this could be anxiety. You're like, man, I don't have anxiety. My mom grew up telling me that we don't. That's white people problems, which is crazy. I mean, it's utterly ridiculous, but you know, it comes with the idea of how other people were raised, you know, and they pass that stuff down. Now I know so much better. Anxiety is a people problem. It's not. It's definitely not racist.
Right.
So it comes for everybody.
Yep.
But at the time, this was my logic of thinking. So let's go ahead to our religion in there, right? Let's go our relationship with God.
Mhm.
Well, obviously, as a Christian, we don't got that because we don't do that there either. So I was just confused. I didn't know what to think. And so this is why I really started running the fear-based theology, because the fear people would use was, well, holiness or hell, burn this. I started hearing that a
Mhm.
lot because you have to be a certain type of way for God. Otherwise, God does this.
Yeah.
And so, because I think up to that point, I didn't understand when people were like, because you know, I had always friends of variety. They was like, "Well, I can't come to church. I'm gonna burn." I'm like, "What? Where did you get that from?"
Oh, I remember
Oh
that people used
man,
to say that all the time.
yeah, yeah. You know what? And I feel like I don't hear that much, but I feel like that really was like, I don't know, bro. I feel like we're about to date ourselves a little bit, but
Yeah.
for sure, like a heavy '90s things. I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah.
I feel like it has,
Early
yeah,
90s, early 2000s sort of thing. Yeah,
yeah.
that was a really big thing.
Yeah, well, because I mean, there's even movies like that. You go to church,
Yeah.
holy water and stuff. It was like it was weird, you know. But people already had this weird form that to be right with God, you have to be a certain type of way. Or now we get into fear-based evangelism, where
Yeah.
oh yeah, we gonna eat tonight or today this morning. My bad. So you guys get ready because we're gonna talk about all these things. I guarantee you now, I'm talking about them. You guys have ran into them, um,
Mhm.
which suggests that get right or get left. I
Yep.
mean, that's literally a phrase. I'm not making this up.
Oh, yeah. No, that's the thing.
What's our favorite one, Joe? Turn or burn.
Turn to
Um,
burn. Yep.
you know, so how these have an impact? Well, for me, I didn't realize the culture at the time was kind of somewhere permeating my heart somewhere, because I didn't think God wanted to have nothing to do with me while I was dealing with all this anxiety. I had people
Yep.
even telling me I had to have stronger faith. My faith wasn't strong enough, so that's why I was going through this.
Yep.
So your mind starts thinking, well, God is punishing me because I'm inadequate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so yeah, yeah, those are my experience. I go on and on, but let's open this box a little bit more
Mhm.
and let's go on this adventure about the impact of it and what it's doing right now. Because if you guys think for one moment this is not real now, then I'll have to beg to differ
Yeah.
that fear-based theology is very well alive and
Yeah.
it's took us some interesting forms in today's society, which is very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I I think one of the things I think it's good that you brought up your specific uh, John, we've got
What's up,
a
John?
comment here. John says, "Morning, brothers. I'm eating. Don't know the topic, but I don't see Anthony. Yeah, Ant's not going to be with us this morning. It's the two
Yeah,
of. I mean, technically, there is an Anthony on the show,
right.
um, but yeah, it's the two of us this morning. But good morning, regardless. Glad you are with us. Um, okay, so I think it's good that you brought up your own specific
Oh, we gotta get
flavor
my
of
topic.
this.
Oh, go my bad. The
Oh,
topic
don't
is yeah, because
good.
I think John didn't like this one. It's the impact of fear-based theology. So what's your experience with it? Do you have any experience with it? We would like to know, John. So yeah, and we'll be on next time. He's taking care of family. But stick around, bro, because I think this is one you're gonna like. My bad, Joe. Go ahead. My fault, my fault. This one there.
All good.
Cover it up.
Um, so I think it's good that you bring up your own flavor of this because I think, regardless, one of the things that I think we all just need to be honest about is, regardless of what your specific orientation is or what your specific um, origin story is or your family of origin, and that can include where you're from, what country or part of the country you're from, your race, all of these things, they all inform how you process the world. And so I am certain and sure that the two of us, being a white dude from the East Coast and a black dude from closer to the West Coast, that we have certain things about what we were raised thinking or what we heard when we were younger or what we thought ourselves that are incredibly cringeworthy, and we're like, yeah, this is nonsense, this is foolishness and stupidity. But when processing a topic, we need to be honest and authentic about what informed the topic along the way. And so I think that's a good thing, to speak to those things that inform them, because I think along the way that can help us, and I think that can help us as people talking about it, but also us as listeners. If we hear the things that informed where a person's coming from, because it will give us a better idea of what led to this point, what
Mhm.
led to this way of thinking, what led to this orientation, all of that sort of stuff. Um, I think that as long as there's going to be fear, there's going to be fear-based theology.
Oh yeah.
And I
Agree.
think what the track that is ours as millennials is one that, I've been working on this video for a while. I'm working on a video essay about the problem of nostalgia and why '90s kids are so wrapped up in nostalgia and things like that. It's
Oh, that's
not that
good.
we necessarily actually think that everything really was better in the '90s, but pre '99 was the last time that we as a collective generation felt safe.
Mm.
Let that sink in. Columbine happened in 99.
Mm. Okay. Yeah.
9/11 happened
2000s, right? Good.
to 2000 or 2001.
One. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
That was quick because we were just watching some on that. Yeah.
And then in between there was Y2K, where legitimately people thought that the
Yeah.
end of the world was coming. And there was and all the while, simmering underneath the surface, and whether or not you were a Christian or not, there were still after effects of the post 80s, well, post 70s, post 80s purity culture of, you do these right things, you live this right way, you focus on being pure as a sign of holiness.
Hmm.
And if you don't, if you fail at that, then you lose inherent value in the eyes of God because you have failed and thus owe everybody an apology. I remember being in a youth group
Hmm.
where a 16-year-old who got pregnant was carted up in front of everybody and told to apologize to the entirety of the youth group. That was that when I didn't have the words to understand why I thought that was so disgusting when that first came about. But again, it's based out of fear. The fear that one bad apple spoils the whole bunch, that the disease of impurity will wreak havoc in the lives of all of these young people. And we live in a we live in a time and have been in this period of time where we have seen so much change within the world from the point where we were born till now, that we have seen a particular variety of a
Mhm.
rotating door of aspects of things to fear and people to fear.
Can I
Yeah.
well, I have a question first up. I do want to read Jonathan's two comments because I wanted to ask about that story because yeah, I mean for sure early 90s, 2000s. Truthfully, for me, 2000s, there was a lot of the, yeah, because we low key could poke at purity culture because that's based in fear too. A lot of that's weird stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think fear-based theology is when people push their doctrine onto others. This is the only way. KGB, only super Calvinism, etc. That these doctrines come out, and people who are on the fence hear these that they are that they will scare people away. Now, in private or in a setting where we can talk about it, then sure, First Corinthians 10 is a Christ divided. Is Christ divided? Okay, I think I pick up where you're going down. It's pretty much how people get it, but the extremity is what you're talking about, which pushes this kind of fear-based theology, Calvinism and stuff like that. Yeah, because Calvinism is very interesting theology in itself, which I do want us to talk about eventually on this stream together. We get, probably pull Ann back for that one and everyone else because that's a very interesting thought process. But you also said I think social media has always played a big role in fearful personal theology. Because I would say media, because media is a big responsibility. That's also talked about earlier. A lot of Christians don't think to speak or live and walk because of fear of being canceled or losing friends. Yeah, because there's even social construct fear, and that's what. Thank you. Oh, yeah, Romans 1:16 again. Yeah, good, good, good. Okay, so since you went to the social part, I'm gonna go back to Joe's story because I wanted to ask some clarifying questions. So this young lady a leader, or was she just got pregnant and
We
they
just got
saw?
pregnant.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yep.
That's why
Yep.
that's the circles I grew up in. And yeah, so social. Yeah, that was really big. Um, in most churches is that if you got pregnant young, but I wouldn't even say let's expand it outside of church. Teen pregnancy was a big deal in the 90s
Yeah.
because it was happening, but people did not like it was happening.
And then
And
the wild thing
yeah,
is reality TV took it and celebrated it.
oh my God. Yeah, man.
That was the most fascinating boomerang effect. And that, like, because we're obviously going to see in a modern context, like if you look at our generation and going forward, you are going to see a downtick. After
Yeah,
the teen mom generation, you are going to see a downtick in the amount of people having kids and
yeah.
all of that. But it really was like this weird rubber band where you were worried, you were warned about, you stay away. You
Yeah.
don't go with fast girls. You don't,
Oh, yeah.
you those girls are just trying to seduce you and all of that, like, or turned into objects of you know sexual fixation by TV. You look at
Man,
any of these old
man.
TV shows, and you definitely know which characters are set up to be the object of affection.
Oh man. I mean, it was heavy, because that was the it girl. Yeah, I'm gonna say girl because for some reason the young fathers who were in the same bracket 16, oh, they were very literally highlighted, which again goes to we talked about this on the stream before. Is there a slight divide in being sexist in the 90s in that form? Oh, absolutely. It was huge. Um
Yeah.
I wish I had my wife on for the stream because my wife was raised heavy in the purity culture. I was too, but I didn't grow up in church. I don't shocking, right? I didn't become a Christian till like 14. And my mom didn't push me to go to church. I did those things on my own. So um I my parents were not deacons or pastors or whatever. They were just, hardworking citizens, and my mom decided she wanted to get her life right with Christ and went back to church. So a lot of these things that a typical American household goes through, being Christians, being raised in the church, some of those things that kind of slipped me, which I'm kind of grateful of. I ain't trying to be like that, but low key I'm kind of grateful. But I was still here. But my wife, on the other hand, grew up in church, so only thing she knew is you didn't have sex until you get married, because if you did, yeah, it was severely frowned upon. I think
Yeah.
the most fascinating thing I thought about, because I met my wife when I was in high school. Now we didn't date until college, and that's a story for another day. But her sisters were always beautiful women, but this was the age of, we're getting now into the 2000s, where you got things like apple bomb jeans and things like that. And there's some beautiful African American curvy women. I'm just saying, my wife is a banger. She's beautiful. Okay. But it always has been. But I remember talking in church where I would hear certain things say, well, be careful with her. Like,
Mhm.
why? Well, look at the way she dresses and this, like this. They even coined my wife, which now kind of pisses me off. Now I think about it. So, wow, I never thought this would make me mad. But my wife, that was a time where leggings were a thing, right? Because remember, yoga pants and leggings were like becoming a thing. So she had these kind of like these gold leggings or whatever. And the deacons had a joke about hot butter biscuits, popping fresh hot butter biscuits. That's what there was. Because they're looking at this, which really should be disgusting. Look at this 14-year-old girl, or how old was Aria at the time? Let's see, because she's a couple. I'm around her off to 16. Probably let's say 16. Because I'm like, I got about
You
two.
should probably, out of grace for the people of the story that you're talking about, at least say 16.
Oh man, I know, right? But we'll go with 16. So, but they're looking at 16-year-old girls,
Yeah.
but and making these comments, but also making these judgments. So you see a little bit of perverseness, but you
Uh-huh.
see the judgment of her. And I mind you, my wife, at the time, and still until we got married, was a virgin. So she believed in what they were teaching.
Yeah.
Purity was big for her. She had the purity ring, because remember purity rings, bro.
Oh, I
Oh
remember purity
my
rings. I
god, bro.
remember promise keepers. I remember all that nonsense. I remember
Uh,
all of it.
so she had a purity ring, and so it bothered me before, because me and her were fully acquainted. Her sister brought me to church, but me and her weren't fully acquainted. But it bothered me that these judgments were made about her, because what I didn't know about her at the time, and I will fully discover being, her boyfriend, was she took that seriously. She, you know, her conduct wasn't based off of how she dressed,
Mhm.
but yet they're saying how she dressed shows that her conduct is a certain type of way.
Yep.
And I thought that was very frustrating, because I'm like, Ariel's the most to me, and I'm not trying to say these words like this, but for me as a man, and that's time I was a virgin, but someone when I thought about like being like didn't know nothing, I'm like, this is the most purest girl I think I ever met. She's very innocent and still kind of carries that nature to her today. You know, it's just my wife. And so it was frustrating, but this is the whole fear-based stuff with we gotta be careful with certain girls like that. They dress like that, she's fast. And since she
Mhm.
dressed like that, it can affect these other girls. And instead of actually doing what the Bible actually says, because the Bible talks about these things, where let's say her dressing was becoming some of a stumbling block, which, oh my God, bro, don't even get me started on that one. Because we need to bring in a female speaker. I think I want to bring Tara in for this one.
Mhm.
But just the way we objectify women in the church, but at the same time, we won't. It's a hot mess. So women can't dress a certain type of way. Men get to be wherever they want to be. There's no accountability. But if I struggle with sin, it's her fault because of how she
Yep.
dressed. Hot mess. Like it's a different stream. And for all these people, like, well, what, you don't believe in mindset? I do, but at the same time, I think when we're talking about sexual addictions and sin like that, is bigger than the woman wearing what she's wearing. That's a personal internalized thing.
Mhm.
So they're two separate, distinct things. You can't make them one thing. But anyway, so um, it was frustrating because if you were going to be pure, you have to look like this. If you didn't look like this, you were treated like this. No one wanted to teach you how to do it because people are too busy bashing you. So
Yep.
it'd be nice for other women to step in and teach something, but you also had other women in her church at the time saying, "Oh yeah, I think that girl wearing a thong or whatever," and oh, watch out for her. That means she having sex. And so you creating all these propagandas and fear, and now people can't come together,
Yep.
and they're scared. Like I'll be real, you know. I think this one I was kind of a little bit more sharper on, but there were certain girls I think I ran away from because she was the bad seed,
Yeah.
the bad apple, or whatever, and you there was just this huge thing of being tainted. And so, man, like let's if it's cool, I want to beat this in the ground. But this is ideal of being tainted because today I feel like first off, sexuality in church. I don't know if I want to touch that. But it's still there. There's still this attitude of that if you're doing this type of behavior, God's looking at you like this. Don't associate with this. Don't be like the world. Pull away from the world.
Yeah.
That type of jog. You feel what I'm laying down? Let's go ahead and talk about that. I want because I know you probably have a whole different experience, different world, maybe same world, but I want to know what your world is on that. Um, Hey, I believe someone's making these comments, and then maybe just maybe that way. Did I
Yeah.
miss a
We've
comment?
got one more comment.
Did I miss one? Was it this one? Did I read it?
I believe that if someone is making these comments,
Okay. I don't want to put the script, but the church doesn't welcome the homeless a lot, and the laws and mental illness people don't feel welcome. So that's a fearful doctrine. Yeah, we
yeah,
actually started off talking about that, and yeah, I think these are yeah. Thank you because I think these are today's problems.
yeah, yeah.
Which were
Where we're
yesterday's
at
problems.
right now
Yeah,
is where kind of where we came up, how we came up, and all that jazz. This is definitely the direction that we're going to be heading when we get
yeah,
into the modern context.
yeah. Because this is definitely for sure the modern problem. Because like our stuff was so weird, bro. I'm just it's the best way I
Yeah.
put it. It was just like looking at it now, it was weird, but it was so important. Like
Right.
you were a virgin. Women didn't have sex until they got married.
Yeah.
Um, Men definitely. It was weird because we really. I still feel like men weren't really want to talk about sexual purity,
Yep.
but what you were taught about is men are successful, and if you're not successful, if you're not taking this serious, then you're not this, which brought some fear because we're a part of that culture that as millennials, we were taught that, well, for one, college was the way. If you
Yep.
didn't go to college, you're a failure.
Yeah. We were right. we were right before the big boom of accepting more trade schools, different things like that. We were also part of that generation where military post 9/11 military propaganda,
Mhm.
if you ever go back and watch commercials from the 2000s, and just sit back and watch just the incredible amount of propaganda and who they were marketing to. They were marketing like the military to young teenagers, trying to get them all riled up and all of this. And so being successful was either you go to college and you get this big high paying job, or you join the military.
Sorry, John.
Yeah.
That's
But
a
I think,
yeah.
but I think the Gen Xers, came before us, and you saw some of this stuff already taking shape in their generation before it even hit ours. I would say that with the advent of technology and the progression of the world and the events that basically took away the perceived safety, because you got to remember, before Columbine happened, people were woefully ignorant,
Mhm.
like woefully so. Like this stuff couldn't, like, the reason why Columbine is so impactful was the first time that people saw that this thing was a thing, that school shootings were a thing. Like they happened before that, but this was like big. And what did they do immediately? Metal music, video games, all
Oh,
of that stuff. Those were all the things that were blamed on the things that tainted those two young men to do what they did. Rather than talking about things like mental illness, we needed to blame a boogeyman. And when you look at, to go back to the turn and burn thing, and kind of because what the whole purity culture thing is just an offshoot of
turn, yeah.
turn and burn.
Mhm.
And for me, I grew up around it. I just, and more of the experience that I had that actually affected me was just the fact that, like, when you talk about the level of uh gender inequality that was taking place, like sexual objectification that was taking place, and just the fact that there was this undercurrent of, in a again a post 9/11 world, when you're now a teenager and, like, starting to form more concrete thoughts about the world, there it was this undercurrent of the good conservative thing was the thing that made America strong. And
Mhm.
that's what we needed to do, was the good conservative thing. And it was just a new coat of paint on something that had been happening over and over and over again. And even when guys were pulled in to talk about the sexuality stuff, it was always oriented around stay away from
Mhm.
temptation, blaming it on women and what women are wearing or what women are doing, or things like that. They were 100% oriented to be the problem in all of this. And it's this idea that you don't want these women, the women that wanted something other than be a good submissive housewife, you don't want them tainting the men and
Yeah.
turning them away from being strong heads of household and all of that sort of stuff, which is a phrase, head of household, that I have a particular umbrage with, because it, for a lot of reasons, for a lot of
He knows my
reasons.
fam because he knows I know. But
Yeah.
this the just to if you guys are wondering, I I feel you because I think it's one of those things that are just weird tiling.
Mm.
Because I don't see a biblical phrase for that. So for being, but me and Joe already had this conversation. But
Yeah.
can I say something real quick just to kind of back up a
Yeah.
little bit? Because you were talking about the whole Columbine situation, and man, I'm rocking with you, John. Let you know I'm seeing these comments. Um, I ain't trying to make you feel old. I'm 78, baby. Oh my god, I'm 78, baby. That's crazy work. That's nice though. That's nice. A's was dope, bro. I was talking about Columbine that some of the people unalive because they're professional. That was crazy. Yeah, I think, but even again, not to point at that. For one, we praise God for our sisters at that time who were brave and who took a stance to profess Christ no matter what the situation was. Like, it's a powerful story, but even that was used as a fear-based thing because a lot of teaching I heard is that if you don't profess Christ at the right moment and you got a gun to your head and you get scared and you say something
Yep.
else, then you're going to hell.
Yep.
Fear-based again.
Yep.
So it's like, so I'm not supposed to have no fear if someone has a gun to my head. Like, what is this? So yeah. Good morning. Good morning. I see you.
Uh,
Um,
and even with that, so I'm particularly um you want to get labeled a weirdo in high school, do a report on Columbine when asked about doing a like a world event sort of thing. Do a report on Columbine. You'll get labeled a weirdo very quickly. I'm not like like I'm speaking from personal experience or anything, but like I said, I can speak to this subject in particular because I was going through youth group and this was heralded as this significant thing. Her name was Cassie,
mm,
and it was the idea. The story is that her and a couple of her friends were in the library, and dude, I don't know, I don't remember which one, put a gun to her head and said, "Do you believe in
right.
God?" And the whole idea is that she said yes, and he blew her, blah blah blah. The problem with how that story has been told post is it ignores a couple of very key statements, or very a couple of very key like
Mm,
motivators. It was very clear that they were just creating havoc,
right.
and they were psychologically at a place where they were very open about the fact of, they called it playing with their food.
Mm,
She was very vocal about her faith. It wasn't a matter of she died for her faith. That's reading too much into it. She didn't die for her faith. They were screwing with her right before they were already going to kill
oh
her.
wow. Okay, I see what you're like now.
So so it's not like, okay, sure, there's some dimension of, at a heart level, here's to hoping that she has eternal peace and all this kind of jazz, right? That she's got deep spiritual peace, understanding what's about to happen. Sure, that part of it, yeah, let's celebrate. If that was a thing, absolutely awesome, fantastic, but not a mark towards her. It's a mark towards God for giving her that peace. Again, it goes back to
Hmm.
God, not celebrating or damning the individual that's involved. Now, it might not seem like a big deal to do this when we're talking about somebody who's being for their faith, but putting those actions on the shoulders of individuals is exactly the same place as these purity things that we're talking about and these other bad manipulations of it that we're talking about. It just
Right.
so happens that in the case of Cassie, she did the right thing.
Right, because 'cause I think that's what I was putting down. Because what if she was a Christian, right? And she got scared, it was like no or something like that.
Yeah.
In that time, it was frowned upon and stuff. Like what you're saying is the bigger vocal point is God giving her what she needed in the
Yeah.
moment. Because this guy was already predetermined to kill. And yeah, again, man, because I'm trying to gravitate away from this purity culture thing. Um, the in fear-based mongering, the biggest thing about that time was the person, not even God himself. So it was really heavy in workspace that
Mhm.
you do this, this happens. And when you do this, you get celebrated when you do this. Not,
Yeah.
well, how's God being glorified? How's God taking care of this person? What does it look like for God to really be in these situations on a humanistic level and him have a um interaction on the humanistic level where he's able to help that person through this hard circumstance and still be glorified, right?
Yeah.
They will use words like that's glorifying God, but looked like if you just step back, see you're not a Christian, it looks like, well, that person's being glorified. And like I said,
Right.
and I don't know where Joe was going with this. We're not definitely disrespecting Cassie, powerful story. God, we grew up hearing about her story.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the bigger focus that we're shining the light on is what God gave her, which is
Yeah.
peace.
Yeah.
What I take out of the story is that when you're faced with insurmountable odds, God will give you what is needed. For her, it was peace. Whatever you might be going through, God will give it. And that's what is powerful about relationship with God is that God doesn't leave us nor forsake us,
Mhm.
no matter what the outcome of people or whatever it might be.
Yeah,
Um,
and
yeah,
that's exactly it, like, viewing less it's less about I think so in some ways she got made out to be a martyr,
yeah,
and she was not a martyr, but if we look to what God was able to give her in that moment, that's the beauty. And then when we look at the hope of salvation and we understand that God's ways are not our ways, that we it's not our job to figure out who's made it, who's done enough, who is accomplished enough or fits the criteria, that we are just called to love God and love others. Then moments like that, when we're looking at the lens of antiquity, it's a lot easier to find God in these things when we're not so focused on the people involved.
yeah, absolutely. Um, well, we gave John the topic, and John, you're gonna have to share that topic because we only hit that one too because it's a good question. About whose fault is it women or men?
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, I can't wait to talk about that because I'm gonna go ahead and tell you spoiler, and we'll go more into when we do it. Me and Joel talk about how
yeah,
we're gonna do this or not. Spoiler: it's not women's fault,
no,
and I'm
no,
just gonna tell you that right now. It's not. Now, if we're talking about settings and things like that, there certain things that could help, hinder. We can talk about it, but at the end of the day, these are what the old folks say, or the old King James version say. These are your members.
yeah,
When I say member, your body, your
yeah,
this is you.
yeah,
And am I not saying women don't cause arousal? I'm not saying things like that, but I'm talking about controlling your members. That is totally your responsibility.
yep,
Because I'll put it like this: a woman could be wrapped in the thickest coat of ugliest sweaters with peanut butter in her mouth, hanging and drooling from there, and a man will find something to get aroused about. So, is that her fault?
right,
Okay. Anyway, so we'll talk about that when we talk about it. I want to circle back. I already know it's not one's fault, but oh yeah, it's a good conversation because I do think, man, I think what people could find is that's why I want to really bring a woman host on
mhm,
is if it's done right, you'll find some beautiful harmony, excuse me, and then you probably will find some breakthrough moments where it might help you. But as long as the finger's being pointed like it is today, because even the whole red pill concept is just crazy. Which my bad, Joe. I apologize. Joe's like my timeline is flood with that crap. Now you said my fault, man. Because even then, that's the problem. And
yeah,
do I believe in roles and women roles and things like that? It depends what you ask me in the perspective of it, because roles are kind of make me feel some type of way. Because again, to keep in the vein of this context, we're raised that this equals this does
Yep.
this.
Yep.
And if we see anything in society today, it's not so white and black. We don't have the same infrastructures that we had a couple years ago to do what equals what.
Right.
So, like, well, what do you mean by that? Well, man works hard. Man works hard, gets a high paying job, takes care of woman, blah, blah, blah. Woman stays at home, cooks meal, blah, 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 and takes care of children. Well, that's great. If one could actually do that in an economy like this, woman and man both got to work to take care of a one bedroom apartment. I don't want to go there. Okay, so let's circle back to you were talking about Columbine again, and you had this thing where you're talking about video games. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because this is still very alive. Um, and it's funny because I get to finally talk about this because the and Joe has want to use his language, but in my relationship with God, I'm very, very vocal about God's communication with me. And so I'm gonna say it this way. I didn't feel led to make this video because I was gonna make a video about um God through gaming. Because that's what my platform is all about. Is I play games, I just talk about God, talk about real stuff, I talk about, how to grow in relationship with God, talk about vulnerable things. I stream a lot. I do a lot of stuff in the video game community. That's just my thing. Some have dubbed me. I've dubbed myself the gaming pastor because I pastor in the gaming community. So, needless to say, I decided I wanted to. While I was doing my last channel, because I got rid of my last channel. Um, as a YouTuber, I was just trying to figure out what works, and in that point, I was looking into well, what could kind of get me there. I'll be honest with you guys, I was trying to like find a breakout video. I'll just be real with you. So I was looking into a lot of the god gaming stuff, and it's really scarce first off on YouTube. But what you do find is you find two extremes, which is crazy, which I'm praying to actually kind of overcome, which is a huge responsibility. um the first extreme is that if you're looking at this in the Christian lens, because both of these are going to come from a Christian lens, kind of. I'm just not kind of, they are. Um, is that should Christians play games? Like if you typed up on YouTube, you're going to find, I would say a handful of videos, not a plethora, but you'll find a handful of videos saying you should not, or it's almost like people are like scared to say that God can exist in this realm. So there's
Right.
a lot of pacifying.
Put away childish things.
Oh yeah, you got that one. I'm about to touch that. 'Cause I saw some guy I'm able to talk about that
Yeah.
one, and you about to see me kind of get on my stick a little bit because that
Oh, I
one.
know. For as much as T knows how to trigger me, I know exactly how to trigger T too.
So, oh yeah, should Christians play D&D? Yeah, absolutely. All of
See,
that.
now you're getting into my
Right?
territory by
See,
asking about that.
all of that. So, had a video I was watching that said that yeah, you shouldn't play because video games are violent. Look at the
Mm,
statistics of this, and
yep.
these school shootings that are happening today come from
Uh-huh.
Call of Duty, and the statistics point this, and there's a mental instability
Right.
when you play these games, and you're so disattached. And so, as Christians, because this is how they try to bring religion into it, we shouldn't be doing these things. No, we should be trying to find different ways to spend time. Or if you do play it, only play it a little bit, don't let it become your god. And it's just like, all right, bro, cool.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about those statistics are supremely outdated and inaccurate, because you better believe
And
I looked at
inaccurate.
it. So that was one. I had one guy that I'm not gonna say his name because I do respect one guy, and I don't, like we talked about weeks ago. I'm not big on slugfest and other Christians, but this did piss me off. So this is totally personal. It's just totally personal.
Yeah.
You've been warned. So
Let it rip, baby.
so um again on my YouTube grind, and so I guess I'm doing research. I got that side of it. And I'm like, yeah, God, I'm like, that's stupid. That's how I came up with that. I'm like, they don't have right statistics. So what's the other side? Well, now you got the hyper evangelist um, person where you have this YouTuber, and this is not the person I'm talking about, by the way, but this is another one that I meant to throw in there. My bad. Where I think this is where you're talking about, John, where people are pressing their faith in gaming spaces. So people just want to come in, play games, don't want to hear about politics, religion, but you got this one guy that's like, oh yeah, you're going to hell if you don't believe while we're playing Fortnite. What? Wait a minute, sir, wait. I just met you.
Yeah.
Can we try to win the match before you tell me to go hell? So that was embarrassing. And all credit to the guy. I watch his channel, and I'm gonna go ahead on the limb. God has a good heart, very evangelistic heart, but he is the epitome of evangelism going wrong. And
So
Joe,
wait a minute.
I'm
Wait a
looking at
minute. Wait a minute.
I'm
Wait a minute.
looking
You
at
mean
you.
wait a minute. You mean
I
you
gotta do it
mean
for my boy Willie G. Berry.
you mean an evangelist was religiously harassing people? No. You
Stop.
don't say.
Stop.
Come on.
No evangelists harass people, but this guy is the typical case of what definitely not to do. I will go ahead and say that. So he was he was he is the model of why Christians should play games. And when I'm saying that, I'm not making it up. That's really what you will find when you type on YouTube is you'll see this guy.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because I'm pretty sure he didn't want that label. That wasn't his heart. But it's also unfortunate because based on see Christians play games, that's what they're thinking on the outside world. I will read this comment and I'm gonna give you the guy that pissed me off, I promise. If you want to hear about it.
Yep.
I was a part of the church for a bit where they wouldn't let their members listen to secular music. Yeah, that's already a problem.
Mm-hmm.
TV, movies, music because it drove fear because they drove the fear of secular will send you down the path of that you can't escape.
Yeah.
Well, they might as well just live in the bubble because anything you walk into this world will apparently do that.
Yeah.
Psych. It's just weird. But yes, again, good point. Good point that out for again, fear-based theology.
Yeah.
And we have covered these topics before. I think when we first started this platform, we talked about music and fandom
Mm-hmm.
and some of those like real ugly disconnectors of if you're doing this, that means you don't believe in God. And so yeah, it's still prevalent. It is still prevalent to this day. Hearing a lot more about anime in my spaces because again, as a gamer, you're going to hear about anime gaming, vice
Yep.
versa, right? And so yeah, anime is apparently demonic. That's a new
Yep.
argument that's going on. So
Yeah. So
go
part
ahead
of
and I'll
that
finish up.
is the inherent fear of talking about spiritual forces. And let's be honest, almost every anime that I could think of off the top of my head, and
Oh
by
yeah,
no means I am not anime is a giant blind spot for me. I've seen like the ones like you
yeah.
start the conversation off with anime 101 and all of that, and I've seen that sort of stuff, but I'm not like going on Crunchyroll and searching the depths of anime or anything else like that. But in my experience,
Okay.
most of them deal with mysticism, they deal with
Yeah.
spiritual components, things like that. And if it's not explicitly stating, if it's not explicitly Judeo Christian, nope, that's of the devil.
The devil, just like that. I love the emphasis. The devil. Yes, a lot of animes do have fan services, but so does a lot of American shows. We just don't call it
Mhm.
fan service. I ain't gonna leave that. I'm gonna stop
Yep. Yep.
because it's just crazy. It's just the double standards are just
And they're wild out, man. That's exactly
amazing.
what they are is double standards. The cognitive dissonance that takes place when trying to talk about this sort of things in media, it just is so bizarre.
It's weird. I guess cartoon boobs are worse than real boobs. I don't know, bro.
Yeah,
You tell me.
apparently.
So- I don't know, man. It's just I'm sorry. You it's let rip. So
This is what happens when Ant's not around. We
we
just get up
just
to some foolishness for
you
over an
be
hour. It's fine.
shenanigans. I told you it was gonna be shenanigans. So yeah, man. I don't get it
Yeah.
because I ask those type of questions. I'm like, okay, because the people who be saying this dumb stuff, they do watch stuff. They
Yeah.
watch the news.
They have to
They watch football.
well, not even just that, but you notice how some of these people, they come into people's comment section pretty well informed about what it is that we're talking about. So what you're telling
Right.
me is, so what you're telling me is in order to know about a thing, you had to have engaged with the thing. So what
Um,
did you do? Sin so that way you could save other people from sinning? Like like extrapolate out the thought process here.
I just don't get it. Make it make sense. That's what we call a make it make sense moment. I don't get it. But people weird is cool. God love them anyway. But people
Yeah.
do weird stuff. So bring
So
hints. Go ahead, real quick.
so you guys both, you and John both brought up a concept that I think will is a good way to round off the entirety of the conversation. So we'll really unpack it here in a bit, I'm sure, but I want to introduce this language of holy and set apart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's where, if whether it's the sexual stuff, or if it's video games, or if it's movies, or if it's music, or something like that, is it just is it is it about being holy and set apart? And when we introduce,
Mm,
when this conversation gets off of media and those sorts of things, and we go back to what John started talking about a little while ago, and we introduce the people, well, then the implications of holy and set apart become a lot more drastic than just I only choose to listen to Jesus music, or and look, praise music, we've got a time and place. We had a whole stream. Willie
Ah!
was on for it. It was a great stream, very
Oh
powerful to
no!
hear from people,
Yeah,
to hear
real
from
cool.
people who do who are worship artists and
Yeah.
who vibe with this sort of music. I will be the first one to tell you, John, and anybody else watching, lurking, take John's example, go ahead and chime in. But I am not, when
Oh,
it comes to Christian media, when it comes to Christian media, I am jaded. Because first off, 90% of it sucks. It's
yeah,
terrible.
no, there was, there was.
Garbage.
Stop!
But
You couldn't behave yourself. I was like, "Where's he going?"
I couldn't help myself. I couldn't help myself.
Okay,
But on the other hand, what is so special about the music?
right,
Like worship music is different than Jesus music, guys. Let's
right.
use some nuance when talking about this.
I feel
Is
you.
it is it a movie that is villainizing unbelievers? Is it a song that if you take the word Jesus out of it, it's a song to your boyfriend or girlfriend? Is it, and are all of these things cool just because they're Christian? You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? It's not, that's where I think we need to be honest about the questions that we are asking, about the motivations behind why we make the choices, or why we villainize the things that we villainize. I may not be a pastor in the gaming space in the purest sense of the phrase like you are, but I hang out in like heavy metal crowds,
Yeah,
goth crowds, ministering to people in that, not in like a I am the light in this, no, because I like metal music,
mm,
and I like wearing black. That's okay. I don't know who needs to hear that. But a pastor can
devil.
identify as goth and also be a pastor. I know I just blew somebody's paradigm to kingdom come, but that's okay.
No, 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 no. That's not the devil. How dare you wear your little golf clothes? Color your beard. What's wrong with you, sir?
Yep.
But
Yep. I remember
yeah,
the first
no,
time I
no.
dyed my beard, and the look
Oh man.
that my mother-in-law gave me, I thought she was gonna turn I thought she was gonna pull her Bible out and try doing an exorcism right then and there. We need to get the devil out of this young man.
Oh man. Yeah, I like it. You talk about people who are idolize Kurt Franklin. That's why we are at it earlier. While you
Yeah.
were talking, Joe. Yeah, because I think Joe, you said something that was really scandalous but true. Because a person who does listen to gospel music, And no, I don't listen to it because I'm trying to find an alternative to R&B all the time. It's just because
Right.
music for me has always been diary driven. What I mean by diary driven is that it's the
Mhm.
way I express myself and where I'm at in my life. It so happens that gospel makes it easier. Well, true. The distinction between worship music and the genre was incredible. I will give you that. So
Mhm.
I'll go ahead and put. So I'm one of those people that really believe in that. So I'm trying to find something that fits what I'm going through, put into a music form.
Mhm.
So that's usually my experience. But man, when you talked about if you took Jesus out of it, and
Yep.
you had to, bro, I was like, he ain't lying because I listen to these musics and I'm like, a lot, especially a lot of '90s to well, let's take, I'll be nice. I'll go ahead and throw 2000s in there.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of music really is about bashing people, how they get one up on people, and we're just saying Jesus.
Yeah.
And go listen to urban gospel. Don't take my word for it. Contemporary gospel, well, they built different, but I'll poke at them a different day. But urban gospel is full of haters. Yo, haters, go ahead and shout in your haters' face. This 2000 language, go ahead and get yours because all those who try to stop you got heavy. It was pretty much a diss track.
Mhm.
This was some nice organ chords and a little rhythm and blues in there a couple times. And so, yeah, absolutely. I'm like, it's scandalous but true. And Kurt Franklin was the king of that. Does Kurt Franklin have some songs that I like that are really sound in scripture? Yeah, this song I'm like, that hits. But are a lot of his songs based off of breakup melodies and things like that? Yeah, because he loves R&B.
Mhm.
My thing is, it's called a spade a spade. So I call you on it. Don't be trying to act like you brand new on me. I'm just just call it what you call it. And so a lot of that had that. See, this was one guy I went to private university with, and he dropped a Christian rap album. And wow, he should have stayed with his date. I think someone whispering is there to get money. Oh my god, bro! I should listen to the flight leaf. Oh my goodness, bro! You gotta do that, man, like that. But no, for real, I think. But then that's a whole different conversation about being honest with each other, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes that may not be the gift, or you might need to hone in a little bit more powerful.
Yeah.
Let's see, even that like Christians, we struggle with conversations like that.
Mhm.
Let's see. You said to me, NF talks about real issues. Yeah, NF is good. I like him. Not my favorite. I'm not gonna hold
Yeah.
you, but NF is cool. Not just
Mhm.
God loves you. He's your hope. I mean, that's good, but where's the hurt in current worship? So yeah, I like NF. My go tos is well, I am trying to listen to like some rap. I like Bizzle. Bizzle keeps it a stack. But Bizzle keeps it a stack with like he also his views and struggles with God. So this makes it more relatable.
Mhm.
Um, Again, not bashing people who want to talk about hope and love and things like that and worship. Those things are good. Those things are true. Those things are pure. I'm just saying, well, we're the point we're driving in is how that you have to find an alternative because secular music bad, secular media bad, Christian listens to good media.
Mhm.
We're trying to get rid of that really tainted thinking because truthfully, when you think like that, you're really close off. And I will venture to dare that the Holy Spirit really came and began to show you different aspects of your walk with Him
Yeah.
and how powerful God can exist in these spaces because you already quarantine God off. You're not quarantining yourself off, you're quarantining God off. Which brings me
Yeah.
to my story. So, and I don't know what we're gonna do after this, but we'll figure it out. Me and Joe just vibing. This is what we do. We vibe. So looks like we when Pastor's not here, this is what you get.
Yep.
But you need you need beautiful shenanigans at time, okay? Because
Mhm.
you're gonna get something out of it. So I am trying to decide as a YouTuber, do I want to make a video about can Christians play games? And to this point, I've attempted to make a video, but I took it down. I don't know if I'm the guy to really touch the subject because I want to be, and like I said, this is how where I'm at right now. I want to be the
Mhm.
guy where I show it more than tell you it could happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
right now I'm more focused on showing it because I feel like there's a lot of people telling you what you can and cannot do already, and that's just not my job. So my space is where I tell people when they come to my streams, my YouTube, that's not my role. My role is just to model Christ, to model His love, and so I want everyone in my stream. I want someone from LGBTQ plus plus. I want to hate this. I'm probably gonna be the person that runs into all these people because I just want to create conversation and have people be safe. That's my goal. Is a safe space where I can. Well, one, the person can be themselves. I'm leading this way first. The person can be themselves,
Yeah.
and I can be myself, and
Mhm.
we have this conversation. So that's my goal. From both of y'all, how can we help people to drive out fear and doctrine from gamer POV? I'm about to get that right now. So this is kind of crazy because I'm about to answer this with the story. Um, so like I said, trying to figure it out. And I started making this video because I run to this guy's video where he's just pooping on great gamers. Like, dude is just majorly taking dumps on Christian gamer men. Let me make this
Mhm.
clear. For some reason, he targeted the men only. Like women don't play games. Like we don't got gamer girls. I guess ladies, you don't
That's its
exist.
own conversation.
Say, ladies, you don't exist in this conversation.
No.
Sorry, go take a seat somewhere. Apparently, there's no gamer girls. But anyway, guys who play games are sissies and pansies, and he used this language. So this is not me using the language. He used this language.
Mhm.
You know, like he said they're idiots or dumb. I mean, dude, this had like I think what pissed me off the most, Joe, is he tried to use a dictionary because I'm like, if you're gonna be this theology heavy, then I need you to use some like real Bible tools. Because that's when I get petty. 'Cause I'm like, okay, if you're gonna come with a strong theological argument like this, and you use like old school Webster's dictionary to prove some points, sir, me, you already got a problem. If you're gonna
Yeah.
come at me this hard and insult my space, then I need you to give me like some strongs. You need to give me a
Yeah.
good. I mean, you're gonna have to give me something. So, bro was using that. That's just me being petty, y'all. If you use Webster's to define stuff, that's fine. It ain't that deep. But for me, it pissed me off because I'm like, you're telling me I can't play games. That was his whole videos. You shouldn't play games. You're wasting your life. To play games is he venture on the side of being demonic. You know, that's not it. And I don't know, bro looked like a boomer to me, low key. I ain't gonna hold you. Okay, that's me being disrespectful. All right, we'll give him an exit for sure. But bro was just gaming
Yeah.
bad. And so me, I was like, I'm about to make a clapback video. And so I literally had bro's video downloaded and I was analyzing it, debunking it. And in short, this is how I came with the conclusion to answer your question. God was so mad. And Joe, I had the video done, brother. The
Yeah.
video was done. And God was like, you can't post it. And I'm like, why the hell not? Because I'm like, if he could post his stuff on there and then try to tie you into it, and it goes back to my view on which I believe God's let me in, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, is bash other Christians as influencers. That's not it.
Right.
That is not profitable.
Yep.
I do not want to capitalize off of tearing him down because I don't know if that video would have had a breakthrough or not. And I don't want to be behind that. So that's what ultimately when I said God was speaking to me, it was leading me
Mhm.
based off of what I believe through biblical principles. That was not the thing to do. That was tough because his video was very successful. So I'm watching both ends. I'm watching Christians who are like, yeah, I'm about to put down games because he's right. And then I got people who made parodies of his videos. That was hilarious. Okay, I'm being petty again. The people who made parodies of his videos were just there. The internet never ceases to amaze me about how they could pay they could be. And so obviously I one guy who's an atheist, and this guy was like, well, I'm gonna play my video games. And I guess I'm going to hell. This dude was just on him. He was on his helmet. And he got a short clip that kind of has him saying stupid rhetoric. It had him looking crazy.
Mhm.
And that's why I was really spending time with God. I was like, oh yeah, I want to be a part of that. So let's talk about this from gamers peer view and goth point of view. So you're blessed, bro. You got two pastors who live in these worlds. And so I'm
Mhm.
gonna let after I'm done, Joe, definitely feel free. I feel like Joe kind of explained it, but I want him to go a little bit deeper because this is more of his world. I think the first thing, if you're going to help people drive out fear doctrine in these spaces, is again create a safe space. I talked about that. That's my heart.
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, we're humans first. Okay, you often hear about us talk about the Imago Dei a lot in this channel, which is we're created the image of God, and God loved when He create us as humans. The first thing that God said is that we were good. I know that's already going to mess a lot of people up because He didn't say you were good based off of this. He said you were good. This is how God has always viewed us. You put Jesus into the mix, He redeems that.
Mhm.
So the things that were broken and flawed, God made right by His Son's death, right? And so that's God's view. So that's my view. That's why I adopt in my challenge that whoever comes in, where you're LGBTQ plus, wherever you're atheist, wherever you're agnostic, wherever you are, maybe you just don't know, maybe you just tired and you just want to play a game. It's creating a safe space, because when you create a safe space, you automatically begin to drive out people's fears and insecurities, because
Right.
people are already going to come in with fears and insecurity. I hate to say we live in a broken world, so a lot of times people come in guarded already.
Yeah.
So the crazy thing I always discover in my community is there's people watching my stream not just for the first time,
Mhm.
but for the first couple times, and then they're like, "You really make me feel safe." I just recently, and I was like, I really, I'm like Joe. Me and Joe have this in common. I really don't like blasting successes and things like that. I really don't
Yeah.
get down like that. But I will go ahead and share this. Joe knows and Ant knows that I've really been trying to break through on my YouTube for years. Because it's not a secret. I love YouTube and I want to be a YouTube content creator. I want that to be my full time job. I love working at the schools, but it's always been my dream to be a full time content creator. Um, so my relationship with that and my motives throughout the years have I've grown in them. I've come to a place where I'm like, God, really, I just want to see you glorified.
Mhm.
And if it's your will, if you open that door for monetization, for me to really turn this into a business, then praise God. If not, I'm cool with it, because my biggest goal is what we're doing right now, creating safe spaces, giving people information, letting people have conversations. Man, and I'm pretty sure, man, you get me and Joel in here for like another hour or two. We'll just talk about how valuable that is more than money.
Mhm.
So much more valuable just to be able to have conversations with you guys in a digital space and really create a place where people can be safe and be themselves. And
Yeah.
so, yeah,
Let me pull away a misconception that some people may have based off
yeah,
of a couple of pretty successful people. There are some people out there that do make full time livings from digital ministry, but
yeah,
by and large, um, those are the exceptions. By and large, there's really not money in digital ministry.
it's not.
You don't get into this field for the money of it.
No,
Not without doing things like making react videos based off of somebody else's content,
yeah,
trying to stir controversy just for the sake of clicks and things like that. At a pure and undefiled level, there really isn't money in doing what we do.
no. Especially like you said, the path we chose, which
Yeah.
is, you know, come on, you're in Christian gaming. I'll just go ahead and just leave that right there. You
Mhm.
know, can I be a less player at any time? Absolutely. And make money. Can I just pick the most popular game and just sit in front of a TV like in the FPS like Apex, Call of Duty, Fortnite, Valorant, all them? Yeah, but to do what we do
Mhm.
in the way we do it, yeah, there's not. So, which brings me in, and actually, I'm gonna get your comments real quick, John, and then I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this story up because I want to be long-winded. I feel like I'm literally being that long-winded pastor right now. It's like saying I'm getting ready to close, and then there's no door. But let me- I'm gonna go ahead and finish up. So, oh yeah, my TikTok, and my TikTok lives, I let everyone in, but at times I do have to meet people but I don't block them. I want everyone to feel safe and listen to the truth. This one's a tough one. I feel you because that's my heart. But I do have a rule for mines. Mines is disrespect because I feel like when you have disrespect, those are the enemies of building up true safe communities. So
Yeah.
I'll give you an example, and I'll use, I'll just use this one since we're talking about in a Christian space. Let's say I have someone from LGBT plus Q whatever come in and they don't believe in God, but they're just vibing with the stream, and you know they're not here for that. But I have someone who's a Christian who's really avid. They're like, "Oh yeah, this is wrong," and they tell that person they're going to hell. I am blocking that person,
Yeah.
hands down, because that's not what my community stands for. But vice versa, if I have a person and y'all, I think y'all witnessed me kind of low key doing this here on I didn't have the power to block at the time, but Joe did it. Have a person who's being disrespectful and coming
Yep.
in, just yeah,
Came into the comment section while and out. Nope, not
you
gonna have
out.
that.
So I'm very equal. So for the Christian, yeah, I don't do any form of disrespect for whoever you
Yep.
are outside Christian. I don't do disrespect. Disrespect is, like I said, a little the enemy of community. There's a difference between disagreeing with someone and totally devaluing someone.
Yeah.
And so I don't tolerate those things. So that's just to clarify. So yeah, you can block them, but just you want to be sure if this person's hurting other people,
Yeah.
you gotta do what you gotta do. And that's why warnings are powerful because some people instant block. Me, I have a policy where I explain to you. I'm like, hey, you're hitting that line, disrespect.
Yep.
And if you don't, well, my moderators will deal with you swiftly and accordingly. So I think you explain. I don't think you ever just block the block. I don't like that either. I think you explain. You let that person know, like, this is offensive. So
Right.
I'm gonna let you modify your behavior. I'm not gonna modify your behavior. That's your job.
Yep.
I'm just gonna protect the space I'm being given. And so that's how I will handle it. Digital ministry is for the hard people. Absolutely. You have to have a heart to do this because, like I said, I've been doing YouTube. And let's say like a video my wife is showing me. I've been doing this for like 5 years.
Yeah.
So 5 years, and to sum the story up, and some of you are like, well, that's not a big deal, but for me it is. Every time I post a YouTube video, I swear I will say, man, I don't believe in the algorithm gods, but I only believe in one God. But if I believe there's like a force behind something, I'll be wondering because when I would post a video, no matter how hard I would edit, how much keyword research I would do, the YouTuber teams, all those things that we do, I would be like 10, 50 views.
Yeah.
I'm me lucky if I hit 100. I've hit 100. But this week I started piercing. Is he ever gonna let Joe speak? Joe speaks all the time. Usually I'm the quiet one. Let me have my moment. It's like I'm about to let him speak.
Yeah.
So, in short, I hit a barrier of I hit started pushing past my thousands.
Mm-hmm.
Again, with my content, like Joe was talking about, that's I'll let you figure it out. It's really hard because people, especially with gaming and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
they want gaming or they want Christian content. To put both these two together, such dominant niches, they don't go well. But Pearson Drew posted another video, and that one's piercing as well. That's powerful because for me, it shows that God has a plan and a space for this gift.
Mm-hmm.
But you do have to have a heart for it, and you do have to create these spaces first. It's not just about being famous, it's creating space. Now, John, I'm going to let Joe speak. Since you saying I'm long-winded, I get the hint, brother. Go ahead, Joe.
So one thing that I think ties this whole thing up and gives a picture of why each one of these things can happen is this idea of what it means to live the Christian life. right?
Mhm.
What that looks like. And growing up
Mm.
as either teens chomping at the bit to finally enlist,
Mm.
or younger folks that were raised by somebody who enlisted from another generation, or you're in that Gen X spot where when things like 9/11 did happen, you were that right age to jump up and go enlist and go kill yourself some bad guys and all that sort of jazz.
Mhm.
Um, so much of what we've heard as millennials has been a response to exactly
Mhm.
that. Put away childish things we had this weird boomerang of almost like a faux 1920s or 1950s ideal come
Mm.
back over the country because, we'll stick a boot in your ass, it's the American way, all that stupidity. um but it's it was this return to, in order to be a good godly man, you have to be physically strong, you have to work hard, you have to look a certain way, dress a certain way, act a certain way in order for you to be acceptable. And if you weren't, then you were being feminine, some
Yep.
version of feminine.
Yep.
And it goes to that idea of, why do you think, honestly, so the evidence through statistics is there that suggests that all of this stuff that we have now about, like like the extreme side of ripping down gender entirely, is a response and a reaction to people coming in and saying, "Oh, there's gender roles. Oh, you have to do this because of your gender." No, no. Like I'll fight somebody on that one. Like because I don't I don't see it. It's man made. And then when you add on top of it the fact that we live in a country that has a malformed version of what it means to be holy and set apart, that's a dumpster fire waiting to happen.
Mm.
And so, holy and set apart, we struggle as Christians to find the right spot to put our peg on being in the world but not being of the world. And for a long time, and there is still a flavor that is very alive and well today, it's this idea that as Christians we are separate
Mm.
from the godless, that our job is to convert the godless over to our side, and we dare not touch anything that will contaminate.
Yeah.
John brought up D&D before. That's been a thing for a long time. I mean,
No,
that's
still
that's
is.
been that's the court of public opinion has skewed wildly over the decades on that one. But at its core, it is a fantasy storytelling device
Mm.
with talking animals, with various mystical creatures and wartime scenarios. Okay, wait, ready,
Here
watch
we go.
this. What else has all three of those things that are generally accepted by Christians?
Hmm.
Narnia. Narnia has every
Hmm.
single one of those things. It's just God flavored. Don't get me wrong. I
Oh,
think
nice. Awesome.
I think Narnia is one of the best. I'm talking about, I personally, my honest opinion, I would put it up there in
He said
conversation.
LOL.
I would put it in I believe it deserves its spot in the conversation with the Lord of the Rings of the world and the Game of Thrones of the world. I think it is pound for pound just as good as the contemporaries, and in some ways better.
I've never seen them. Don't judge me too hard.
The movies are fine. If you're a fan of the books, the movies are fine. The books are where it's at, and
Mm,
especially if you have Spotify,
mhm.
go in and listen to Spotify's version of it because you get the last one, the last battle, read by James T. Kirk. Patrick Stewart, the dude from Star Trek, reads
Yeah.
the last battle, and it is epic because he does all of the voices and all of the things. Like it
Oh,
is
wow.
A class audio booking at its prime. Anyway,
Mm,
um, so we struggle with this idea of how to be with yes, John, you need to start with the magician's nephew. Um
okay.
so um that becomes not as highly regarded when talking about that in terms of what activities that you engage with. But this idea of holy and set apart also extends to how we view other people.
Mm,
Because if we're holy and set apart, then how are we viewing the people who do not think like us, who do not worship like us, who do not engage with God like us,
oh, holy.
that have a different color skin than we do, that live in a different
Mm,
part of the world than we
mm,
do, that come from a different economic background than we do? Again, fear based theology takes a lot of forms and goes to a lot of places and is far more pervasive than we feel comfortable talking about a lot of the time. It informs an inherent bias that we feel
mm,
for some things against other things, and it fuels a slanted position as we enter into conversations, situations, how we engage with the world, how we engage with content, all of this sort of stuff. And it becomes this story of, as Christians, we dare not engage with anything that isn't of God. But I double, triple, and quadruple dog dare you to crack open your Bible and show me
mm.
a single place where that is actually advocated. And I'll go back to something that you said earlier on in the stream. No, I'm sure some instance, someplace of somebody pulling out a Webster's to try and define something in the Bible is applicable. So I don't want to say never, but uh, yeah, go with the dictionary of terms that are in the book that you're reading.
Come
There's
on, man.
nothing wrong
Right.
with that. That's not petty. That's asking somebody to show their work. Like, I could come through and I could sit here and say, just in Revelation alone, the amount of nonsense, and if you had no other backing to believe anything, and you just heard the nonsense coming out of it, you think that, I don't know, Jesus is a unicorn, and that,
Mhm.
you think all manner of wild stuff happening. But also at the same time, this is why we have a generation of people who fundamentally do not understand the Jewish studies behind Christianity
Nope.
and the intrinsic tie between Judaism and Christianity. We have a whole generation of people who want to throw up on a Facebook thing, make it nice and cute. I stand with Israel. Do you know what that means? Do you know what that do you know why you're standing with Israel? Past the verse. Past the verse that people go that people turn to. Do you know why you're doing what you're doing? Do you know why you engage the homeless population with making sure that you come fully loaded, full utility belt of a God bless you, and let me make sure I pray with you, and let me take a picture while I give you this money.
Mm.
Come on, man. And that's where, again, God putting things on your heart, no harm, no foul, no lies detected. I have no problem with it. I'm just will always stand by the fact that you're going to get up, especially if you're going to get up in front of a crowded room of people and you're going to say, God put this on my heart. Oh, dude, you better be more confident in that than anything else you've ever been confident about in your friggin' life, because that's a big deal. That means something. When you step forward and say, God gave me this,
Yeah,
that,
and that was my thing with that dude. Is the
yeah,
whole verbiage of God said the Bible, because he was like
right.
abusing the Bible.
Yeah.
So if we want to
Yeah.
create safe spaces, you can't abuse the Bible either.
But in order to even create a safe space, we need to be aware of the fact that we live in a nation that was built on the foundations of fear-based theology.
Oh yeah.
Like 100%. It was born out of that place. It was born out of, you do not come and take ours because we are fearful that then we will lose ours. Okay, let me pull a curtain back. I'm a business owner. So like this whole fear-based theology thing, I understand the road that some of my contemporaries as Christian business owners fall into of, my business is for the kingdom. Bro, you fix roofs. It's okay to fix roofs. Paul made tents. It's okay. Like, you drive an Uber. Awesome. Fantastic. Do you provide for your family? Aces. I am happy to see another person who is able to provide for your family. And you're a Christian who happens to do that. Okay, I promise. I promise. It's okay if you don't put a Jesus fish on your marketing. Like, you don't need to have a nice little Jesus fish on your thing. That doesn't make
Why
you a
is it?
Christian company.
Why do we make it? Always,
And
it is the Jesus.
it is the Jesus fish
It's
every
the Jesus
time.
every
Um,
time.
but it's okay to be a Christian that owns a business and not
Yeah.
be a Christian business owner. Because the marketing agency that I own with my wife is owned by two Christians who love the Lord dearly. We are not a Christian business. We do not work with Christian organizations primarily. It's what we do to make money. Because again, I go back to, there's no money in digital digital ministry.
Mhm.
There's not. You know what I mean? And that, so all of that means that now you step forward with the understanding that you live in a spot that is already skewed to wrapping your mind around this idea of love God, love others, love your neighbor, this whole idea of what it means to be holy and set apart and all of that sort of jazz. That means that you do not associate with the godless heathens. We've seen so many examples of this over the years to varying levels of extremity. If you can step forward with the idea that controversy creates cash, that this is a system born in that mentality and thrives off of the separation created by media and politicians, that these politicians do not care about you, that these celebrities do not care about you, that the people who advocate these stances do not care about you, that they are doing it for themselves for some reason or another, for some gain or another, then you can start to separate out, okay, this is the stance, but what then do I do with these people? And then you take a step back and say, okay, I may have this particular belief system.
Mm.
I may have this particular stance. But in the business of love God, love others, my opinion on another person's lifestyle matters not. it doesn't matter. It whether or not I agree with their lifestyle choices does not stop the call, not just as a pastor, but as a Christian,
Hmm.
to love God and love others. That leaves a lot of room for stances. That leaves a lot of room for um, secondary issues, third level issues, different things like that, the matters of non significance. But so we're not called to like don't have an opinion, but is your opinion more important, or is creating a safe space more important? And so when you can understand that systematically, that's one of the things that when Tiara was on for those series of episodes that I love that she kept going back to. Guys, if you think that you are ahead of the curve here and that you've always stayed 1 foot in front of the system, that probably means that you are ingratiated in the system,
Mm.
because the system wants you to believe that you are not a part of the system. And all of these things, how we view others, how we care for others, all of that sort of stuff, that all is part of a system that like they don't want you to know that you're a part of the system, but it's systematized and you are taught from a very young age how to think these things, what to think about these things, and stuff like that. And so understanding the runway helps to say, okay, first and foremost, this is a space that when you walk into this space, you are prayed for and you are loved deeply. That's
Yeah.
it. Like that's what that there. And then if you have relational context and the conversation happens, okay, if you have a strong relational context, then there shouldn't be a problem with a controlled environment where both people are giving their opinions about a particular topic. That gets into the conversation of, can we disagree and not call somebody an ist or an ism? Can we disagree and not divide?
Right. 'Cause that's the work right there, is staying connected.
Yeah.
A lot of times when people disagree, they disconnect.
Yeah.
And that's the rough part. I saw John's comment earlier, and not to poke at this comment, but even this kind of continues this fear of, am I with God or not?
Yeah.
And the lukewarm was really, and still is predominantly having today, lukewarm comment, lukewarm Christian.
Mm.
Um, I think first off we got to define that more biblically accurately. Um,
Yeah.
because in the context of scripture, just taking it at face value, these Christians that he was talking about, Revelations, this church predominantly, they started on a good track with God. They were caring for God. They were true. And then it's kind of like what really could happen today. Corruption came in, things started coming in, and they started losing their way. And they just started doing. I think the scariest thing about Christians today is, if you ever had a space where you're just doing for God, just to do,
Mm-hmm.
with no connection, no real personal inspiration from him and from others.
Mm.
I love Joe's comment about community. I can't say it, but pretty much in our community, we are formed because Christ is in community. So when he's in our community, we're being formed.
Yeah.
So when you're doing these things and there's no connections with other, you're just, let's say your pastor is preaching just to preach. It's actually something that God's been dealing with me on a personal level. You're just, I don't know, you're just serving just to serve. There's no care for people. There's no real heart behind it.
Right.
To me, that's what I would say lukewarm looks like.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he was talking about, is that these people lost track of their first love.
Yeah.
If you ever been in a marriage, both of us are married men, we can tell you there was this eve of euphoria and intensity of emotions when we first got married. There was
Mhm.
just certain things we did for our wives because, you know, it was fresh. It was amazing. It was a spectacle, right? And vice versa. If our wives were on here, they'd probably say the same thing. The thing is not necessarily maintain the thing. The thing is maintain the heart posture for the thing. Is my wife still as valuable and precious? Or and do my efforts exude from that love, not out of, oh, I just gotta do this. Because people
Right.
feel that.
Mhm.
Um, I have a wife that, man, I swear it just blows me away, man. Um, when I pick her up, always ready for a kiss, always excited to see me. Married for
Mhm.
10 years now.
Mhm.
So, like, why am I talking about this? Well, because that's how our posture should be towards God. Is what he's talking about, is that there's this love, this is excitement to
Yeah.
want to be with him. We use lukewarm as we hit more doctrine stuff. He already had church for that. He talked about that in a couple verses down if we keep reading. So it can't be that. We think about compromise. We think about weird stuff that actually has nothing to do with being a Christian.
Yep.
But be cool. And I know it's gonna be scandalous. That has nothing to do with being a Christian. It's nothing to do with being lukewarm. Me, let me pull out an example. Me agreeing that gender inequality is a real thing doesn't make me lukewarm. Because what I'm trying to say is, like, let's say what we've been talking about the whole stream is that, well, roles are man made, not God made.
Yep. I'll take
Someone
it
said,
one. You
yeah,
want me? I'll give an even more controversial version of what
yeah,
you just said. Me being an ally does not make me a lukewarm Christian. And
yeah.
it took
Thank you.
me a while to be willing to use that phrase. Like I became cool with it before stepping out and saying that phrase because I think I was afraid of the things that would people would automatically assume about me or associate me with or anything else like that. Um and it's so funny to me that the people who bark the loudest at me saying stuff like that have never actually once asked me what my stances are. They just
Right,
assume based off of the language that I
right,
use.
which is
But
crazy.
here we are, and now I openly state that yeah, I am an ally, and I that does not make me a lukewarm Christian.
Right, because let's look at the word itself, right? Let's say because we're not using the Strongs right now, which I actually do want to do a study. Like, so John, thank you for this because it makes me want to do a study on it. So it might be a video topic for me eventually. But let's look at this for the base value, what you just put down and off those verses. People were hot for God. They
Mm-hmm.
were on fire. The relationship in that church was, man, there was a love affair, and the things got stale.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you leave water out too long, it gets stale. It's no longer hot. It's just no longer cold, like you said, it becomes stale. That is scary, bro. But I don't know why we make this more doctrinal than the actual actions of love towards God Himself and His people. I'll tell you why, because it's easier to focus on that stuff
Yeah, yeah.
versus do do I love people the way God's called me to love them?
Mm-hmm.
Does my heart reflect that the same way it did when I first said yes to Him? Did
Right,
my heart ever reflect that?
right.
You know, that is, 'cause, bro, I've been really, me and Joe talk about this a lot. I've been praying about it personally. I'm like, guys, is that just a crisis of one church, or is that just a church at large, global? And I dare say it's a global church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We are, and I'm gonna really pick on American churches. We're very good at doing. People are so good at doing,
It's institutionalized.
but no one, right? But no one really. I'll be. Let me be nice. Let me not put no one because I want to put finite statements. People are having a hard time really connecting with people,
Yeah,
loving people.
yeah.
Loving people is hard.
Love and
Um,
blizzard.
it is. Because as a human being, you already have a threshold.
Right.
The best human being, and like I say, human love is not bad. We haven't talked about that, but I think off lives and different topics on our personal channels, we talk about love in a sense.
Yeah.
Human love is not bad.
No.
Phileo is not bad. That's what the Bible call it. It's brotherly love, human love. Human love is not bad, but human love is limited.
Yeah.
To love like agapeo, we're talking about to love anybody without no fault, without no prejudice, without no bias. You're
Yep.
stepping into agapeo type of love because that's how God loves. God loves without bias.
Yep.
God loves just to love. He is love, and so that's a spiritual thing now because that's God's realm.
Mhm.
And so to have people love the way God loves is a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's like I said, stream for another day. Think of it this way: hot or cold water is refreshing, but lukewarm drinks are nasty. And are we refreshing the community, or we're not welcoming them to the community? Yeah, I like this. I like that. I like that because yeah, that's how I would sum this moment up.
Yeah.
Is there's a lot of, yeah. So if we use it that way, personally, I have a problem with this word lukewarm. I'll be honest with you. That's probably more of my trauma with it. It's not bad because, but I think does the Bible say I prefer you hot or cold, or does it use lukewarm? Because
Depends
I
on the
say,
translation.
yeah, 'cause I think it's a translation thing, maybe. But me, like I said, those are very nuanced things, very small, in a
Yeah.
sense where it could kind of distract from the bigger point. So, so I digress on that. Um, I like this because you're saying, yeah, when we become stale, when we don't love, where there's not love pumping through a community, when people are not free
Yeah.
to be themselves, you have a stale community.
Yeah.
And yeah, that water is nasty. Who wants to drink that? Wi-Fi
S-
drop. Yeah, go ahead.
So
Okay, you can repeat it.
not entirely sure though that it's a lukewarm problem. I think it's a foundational issue. I think it goes deeper than that. I think there are
Yeah,
some versions of what you're talking about. There always are. Like when you bring something up, some church, someplace qualifies. Okay, cool. That they started off aces and then just kind of fell into or eased their way into a specific posture. But I think more so, I'll take something like 2020.
yeah,
Became very jaded in 2020. I became very angry in 2020 because systematically I watched people not give a rat's ass about other people, do not care whatsoever about other people. That it was all about we need to do things this way. We still need to gather as people. We or gather in person. Forget about if the illness isn't real. You're a sheep if you believe this, you're this and that and all this kind of stuff. And it I fundamentally believe that all that did was shine a light on things that were already existent.
yeah,
And yes, I'd be the first one to admit I am cynical. I fight with my cynicism on a daily basis. And so it is very easy for me to come to the conclusion of, oh, it means it was broken from Jump Street. And yeah, we could give the cupcake patty cake answer of humans are involved. So it's always an issue. Humans are involved. And it's always an issue because humans are involved. But I think we use that as a crutch. I think we use that as a means to forgive ourselves for more things than we need forgiven for. And I mean that in the sense of like just hand waving things away that we need to be better about, that we need to be more aware of community, of caring for people, of what that looks like to be able to love on people where they're at as they are. um it's it's one of those things that, one of the big flavors of this that you guys are gonna start hearing if you haven't already yet. And I know because I myself and Andrew, the Ministry Misfit, check out Ministry Misfits, part of our network. um we did a couple of years ago a whole big thing. It was actually inspired by Rico, another member of the team, an episode he did on Halloween. And
mhm,
so we started doing it, actually started off as a joke, this series called Is It Pagan? Because we would hear about how Halloween trick or treating, cultural Halloween, the whole nine yards, is pagan in origin, and that's why we need to do things like spread the gospel through tracts. Okay, all right, just
Um,
real quick. Hold on. If you are planning on giving out tracts this Halloween, what I want you to do, follow me here because it's complicated. Okay, what I want you to do is I want you to take those tracts. I want you to put them in a bag, preferably like a burlap sack. That way it burns for longer. And you cover that thing in lighter fluid and light the thing and watch it burn. Tracts are religious harassment. 110%. And twice on Sunday. Tracts are religious harassment. And but it's the idea that we need to meet the godless heathens with the word of the Lord. First off, world history would like a word. That we'll start there. That the idea of being able to study the world's history in America and how third grade level this country has been for a long time is wild to me. But it does for all of the bits and for all of the jovial, all this kind of stuff, blah 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 blah. All of the bits aside and the sarcasm aside, it's this version of what do we do with people who do things differently than we do?
right.
And now it may be jocularity to mention that, but then what do we talk about? How whose job is it to care for the homeless? Oh, don't
Right.
think that these don't come from the same place. What do we think about immigrants?
Yeah.
What do we think about people from another country or that look differently than us or have an accent or something along those lines? Because again, I'll go back to 9/11. I'll go back to the world that we became teenagers in. I promise you, especially on the East Coast, Islamophobia 1000% a thing. And I'm a person who I think we have become far too loose about calling people phobic and
Yeah.
all of that. Because those are clinical terms, they need to be respected as clinical terms, and just because you don't agree with something doesn't mean that you are irrationally afraid of it.
Right.
It's just slang at that point, but slang that's based from an actual medical thing. So I use Islamophobia in the purest sense of the word. So again, what is our heart posture? Like, are we trying to scare people in? Like, I don't think John said something before, and I don't necessarily agree with it. I don't think it's a matter of people being afraid to admit that they're a Christian anymore. I don't think that. I think those days are gone.
Right.
I think it's a matter of asking the question of, are we trying to scare people into the pews? Are we trying to scare people into the church? Because I think we live in a day and age where, yeah, you may need to endure people having some preconceived notions about you because of other people acting in the name of Christ. But by and large, this idea of out and out being ostracized for your faith, those just aren't like in America, by and large, that's not really the path that we are walking anymore. It looks different for us, and we need to adapt for that.
Yeah, man. I agree with that, man. I was talking way, way earlier we started because then common size and task scumbag theology, which I coined from you, which I really
Yep.
am recovering from.
Yep. A lot of
Right now,
people are, man.
as I'm speaking to you, even right now, the way I see myself, the way God sees me, is so hard.
Yeah.
Because I will say somewhat brainwashing
Mhm.
of culture and doctrines from our church that you bad, God good, God good,
Yep.
you gotta be scumbag. And not you scumbag in order to be good because God's good. And I'm like,
There always needs to be a villain. That's the
right,
problem with trying to read the hero's
right.
journey into the biblical account is there always has to
To
be a
be,
villain.
and God doesn't think like that.
Nope.
And that's what's scandalous. And we're going to talk about that because maybe me could talk about that off cam if that could be our next subject.
Mhm.
Because for me, it ties into receiving love. You're going
Yeah.
to have a hard time receiving the maximum effect of God's love in your life with that theology
Yeah.
in your mind. And it's from some people, like, well, you're never ever going to receive the maximum of God's love. True, but I like to believe that Paul had a good idea. He was like, I want to apprehend him, God, the way God, he said, the way, probably about to butcher this. He says, I want to apprehend God the way he's apprehended me. So in short, he's like, man, I want to, the way God has loved me and poured into me, I want to receive that to the fullest maximum. I want to grab him the same way. And that should be the goal, is that God has poured out love already.
Mm.
Doesn't matter what you are, what sex you are, what your ideals are, God's already poured out love.
Right.
When you become a Christian, the goal is, how do I receive all this? But now, how do I give it too?
Yeah.
That's the next part. Is if you're digging scumbag theology, is to give you guys a little interlude before we go. You're gonna have a hard time giving it
Yeah.
because you're going to operate in fear-based mentality.
Yeah.
Because in order to become a Christian, it has to have a fear and a hook, because you're bad, God's good. So receive the gospel. Not, no, you're deeply loved. Here's an invitation into a relationship.
Exactly.
Total different,
Yep.
and it is prominent. Or you got the prosperity gospel, which we talked about, which is marriage full of works.
Yeah.
If you do this, you act this way, then you're this. I didn't want to look at this comment about the youth building and cost of $10 billion and to forget the poor homeless. I hear where you're going with this, and I'm not gonna say I disagree, but I will have a but though.
Mm.
And my but is that, yeah, and I know you're coming from the context of, I think Joe was talking about, like, really caring for people and
Mm.
creating a safe community. I'm not for building things for our communities and church and things like that. But I feel like a lot of times we shield the homeless and the poor because we think those are easy acts of love that are visible. What do you mean by that? Well, if I feed the homeless, I take care of the poor, I take care of the immigrants, the orphans, that shows I love God. That doesn't really show you love God. Those are actions.
Yeah.
Can those actions be comprised of love? Absolutely. But we're saying those are actions that comprise the love of God and loving for people, then we're in trouble already. Because
Right.
again, you fell right back in the same pattern of works, not love being the driving force for for human nature, period. For
Right.
loving your fellow brother, period. That is a challenge. And I almost
Yeah.
want us to go into, I don't know, that's a separate thing for me to do, or we hit it here. But the challenges of loving people, I don't think people, they
Yeah.
vastly underestimate that.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, me and Joe we in like, I felt when I said it, you felt me.
Mhm.
Loving people is hard,
It is. It is.
and
Yeah.
man, I wish, because we're gonna wrap up
Mhm.
because I want to honor everyone's time, but I wish people understood that will be your life battle. Because we have another thing, like we talked about, well, we haven't talked about flesh and spirit yet, because I'm interested if we ever will. Because I just feel like I understand that deeply different, because your human nature in itself, even that's not bad. It's just flawed and corrupt.
Yeah.
So this is your
Yep.
human experience, right? If our love experience is the same being the Christian, our nature, and where we're not challenging ourselves
Yeah.
to love the way the Lord loves,
Yeah.
we're in trouble. Well, I get what you're saying. Yeah, let's do it. But what happens when you have to love people who you deem as a human unlovable?
Yeah.
now we're probably talking. Because we were going to talk about community, you got to talk about loving people who might be unlovable in your community,
Right.
based off your biases and your past and your human experience. And so, yeah, we'll put pin for there. I think this is a good place to park.
Yeah.
Um, but I like Joe's phrase when he ends. He's going to say it, but he said, "You are prayed for, and you are loved deeply." Right? That's it, right?
Yep.
Because man, that's to me the crux of even the answer to today's stream. Is how you do a fear-based theology. Well, you got to know that you're prayed for. Someone's praying for you. You got to know that God's praying for you. That God loves you. Um, you're cared for. To have fear is the opposite of care.
Yep.
When you care for someone, you overcome fear. Thanks. I'm starting to doze. Y'all aren't boring. It's just I got woke up at 5. I feel you, bro. I was up early too, so no offense taken at all. And we're parking right here, so you're good to go, fam. But if you guys don't know, follow us. I know Ant wasn't here, so it was a different vibe of the stream, and I liked it. It was a cool vibe for me. So I was just cool vibing with Joe. And,
Yeah.
We will be back soon. We're
Mhm.
going. Schedule has been kind of weird for all of us on in the RIP community. We've been kind of doing different things, different ministries, as our ministry somewhere right now with his wife, and so we're figuring that out. But be looking for us. That's why you want to make sure that you follow. I think I'll never say follow. I don't know why I don't. Which probably would be the biggest thing to help you guys out wherever life. So
Yeah.
make sure if you haven't followed today's stream, make sure that you follow. And likewise, share, continue the conversation afterwards. We want to hear even afterwards about how you felt about today's stream. Share it with a friend, hear how they feel about it. Let's have another conversation. You can find us at our respective social media places. We are working on getting a link, but for now, we're just going to go word of mouth. I am on TikTok as Pastor TC, and you can also find me on YouTube as Pastor TC. Very simple. So if you mirror my name, you will find me. Just throw a pastor in front of it. Kind of weird, but very easy. Joel, you're on the Love Thy Neighbor Network. You're everywhere. You're on Ministry Misfits. You said a whole bunch of them. But where narrow it down? Where can they really get a hold of you if they need to ask some more questions? Yes, Pastor TC. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
To the main spots where I teach are Buddy Walk with Jesus and a podcast that I just launched called Faith Explained. That's basically soundbite teaching, like short form teaching, and all of that. But yeah, there I'm also all over the place on everybody else's channels as well and all that. So with that, y'all, thank you all for joining us for another edition of Let It Rip. Like T said, make sure that even after the fact, you are commenting. Let us know what else you would like to hear us talk about. We do pay attention to the comment sections even after the fact, so we welcome any and all questions, comments along the way. But until next time, remember, you are prayed for, you are loved.